Hi everyone, sorry it's been a while since the last episode. I've been really busy with a major website update that we just released. It has a bunch of new features, including guest checkout, even for downloads. And when you purchase a download, the links are emailed to you, so you don't have to go to my account, to your own downloads page and everything like that. We also just launched our spring fundraising drive, and we received a matching grant from the Chicago Society of Jungian Analysts for $5,000. So the first $5,000 donated will be matched dollar for dollar. So if you would like to support the Institute, including supporting this free podcast, visit our website, jungchicago.org, and there will be a link to the fundraising drive in the show notes. Also, any support that you can offer really does help keep this podcast going and make it available to anyone in the world who listens to it. So thanks very much for your support. Welcome to the Jungian podcast from the C.G. Jung Institute of Chicago. Healing Cinema, The Lost Daughter. Jungian analysts Judith Cooper and Daniel Ross discuss Maggie Gyllenhaal's 2021 film, The Lost Daughter, based on the 2006 novel of the same name by Elena Ferrante. They also reflect on the analysis provided in the article Motherhood and Taboo, Recovering the Lost Daughter from the Point. And that article will be linked in the show notes. Now let's jump right in.
You ready to talk about the lost daughter?
Sure. I think.
It's like giving birth to the lost daughter, right? We've been talking about this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You kind of marinate in it for
a
while, for a couple of months.
Yeah. Well, it's good to be back, though, doing this with you.
I missed
talking about film and psychology, analytical ideas.
Yeah. And, this whole image of healing cinema, I think, is so interesting since we started it, because the films that we're choosing to talk about, I think, have this element of healing. We're looking for transformation. How are these characters transformed, if they're transformed, and what goes on that in the transformation? What are the dynamics? Because that's the analytic process, right?
Right. Yes. What are the elements of that process? And I think for this film in particular, they're not necessarily hard to see, but I don't know if we agree about this when we talked about it earlier. I don't see any character transformation, any changes in Leda, the main character. But I think we can ferret or tease out some elements of that the psyche is trying to bring to her attention that she's not able to pay attention to.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
Yeah.
I since we decided to do this podcast and then we talked about it, it's almost like her ambivalence has been mirrored in or transferred to me. I have such a love-hate relationship with the film, with the book, with talking about this even. The material to me is the story is, and as well, we're going to say that we're going to be referencing the book as well, because we both read the book, and the book fleshes out a bit the backstory. But reading the book and watching the film has been difficult. I think that's Ferrante's superpower.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
brings all the contradictions and paradoxes to bear on her characters, which it's not pleasant.
No, it's not fun.
No.
It's but it's to me it's been enlivening.
Has it?
I really love Ferrante and
Mm.
what she does in her writing. So
Mm.
I'm looking at that. My favorite friend.
Oh, my brilliant friend. Yeah.
Yeah, my brilliant friend.
Yeah.
Series. Fascinated.
It is.
Just
it is.
fascinated.
Yeah,
with it.
it is. Yeah, hard to watch, but you know, it's like the archetypal layer of repulsion and fascination at the same time.
At the same time, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's dive in. Your suggestion. I had the same problem trying to treat this film as a separate work of art from the book, but and then I try to do that, and then I can't because I keep filling in with the book's version, and vice versa. So it may appear in our talk as merged in some way, and some, the images are sure mingled in my head between the film and the book, and so.
Yeah. At the same time, there seems to be stark differences, and maybe we can get to those as well.
Yeah.
But there is definitely overlap and it's the age-old controversy of when a book is filmed, which is better.
Yeah.
I think the two together really bring it to much fuller expression of the psyche. And
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So this film had the director did the screen adaptation, Maggie Gyllenhaal.
She wrote it and they directed it. Yes, she wrote the script.
Yeah. And we should say, I think these details are interesting. If people don't know, Elena Ferrante, the author of the novel, is anonymous. Nobody knows even if she's male or female. And so, but the film was made with her blessing. Maggie wrote to her and said she was interested in adapting it for the screen, and Ferrante said yes. So that's interesting piece. It did get nominated for the two lead actresses got Oscar nominations, and Maggie Gyllenhaal won not an Oscar but won for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Venice International Film Festival. So we pick good films. Should we say that right out front?
We do. It's Jung's difference between a psychological work of art and a visionary work of art that we're trying to flesh out. This. I think this is a hard one to call because it's not a standalone, and as we talked about, we kind of go back and forth between the book and the film. I think the theme is visionary, and I think that's why we're talking about it. This idea of maternal ambivalence and there's something in the zeitgeist about that, because that's been coming up in my sessions with my analysts. It's been coming up in the JPP, our Jungian psychotherapy and Jungian studies program at the Institute. So it's there.
I agree. It's visionary and theme. That's a good way of putting it, because she's drawing from the material. Both film and book draw from the collective. She's trying to comment on the collective unconscious. She's trying to comment on the cultural complex and how it's remaining not fully conscious. So, yeah.
So you want to talk about the plot real quickly?
Yeah. I have a brief summary. I'll
Good.
go ahead and read it. Leda is a 48-year-old Harvard professor. She never uses the word Harvard. When asked where she's from, she says Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is interesting. She's also an empty nester, which I think is an important point. Her adult daughters have left the home. And she decides to go on an idyllic vacation to Greece, where she's disturbed by a rowdy clan from Queens. She gets attracted to this beguiling young mother, Nina, and who loses sight of her daughter on the beach. Leda finds and returns the girl, but not without taking the child's beloved baby doll. And at this point, Leda begins to experience flashbacks of her own mothering experience, alternatingly doting upon the doll. We see that like it's a real child almost, and neglecting it like a real child would do. Leda enters into a complicated reenactment with the mother of the child, mirroring her own mothering experiences, which include abandoning her children when they were young.
Very good.
Yeah. You pointed out, Dan, that this is about liminal space too, you know, on the beach. And even the first shot of the movie, she collapses on the beach, and then it's a flashback to the film. And so that collapsing is also a liminal image, you know, in terms of consciousness. She loses consciousness at the water's edge.
And the image at the water's edge, this liminality between water and land, and
Right.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about liminality, because it's so integral to analysis and Jungian thinking. Because Jung's theories evolved into this idea that the archetypal realm and the personal realm have this connection between the two under the right circumstances, in which there's liminality, and you know that happens in fairy tales and mythology. It also, you know, we experience it in dreams with our analysis, when you have thresholds, when you have airports and bus stations, and you know what I mean? And so many dreams are in those spaces that he says that that's the potential for synchronicities, right? Where something breaks through. I think that's a good way to describe what happens.
I like it. Yeah.
That she was planning on this idyllic vacation, right? And then the illusoriness of this world starts to be broken into by these dark aspects, these dark things. This just right off the bat, in her room, bed and breakfast, or whatever it is, you know, the lighthouse penetrating, right, and with the noise and the light breaking into the room, the fruit, you know, that first appears so, you know, beautiful, and then underneath it's rotting. There's rotting fruit in it. The cicada on the bed that bursts, and you know, all of these images suggest this breaking through into the idealized, of the de-idealized, the reality, the dark aspects of the reality, the shadow aspects. You know what I mean? Right from the very beginning, and then throughout the film. Right.
I agree that liminality is such an important concept, and the way I like the way you're describing it. It does. It carries a fluidity that the ego doesn't want to be to allow in, this back and forth between the unconscious and the conscious, that there are levels and layers of that, and all these things that you're naming that go on right from the get-go in the film carry that energy. There's like a foreboding. I think the music was it contributed to that, and I think there was some reports in the reviews that she wanted to do a kind of thriller, more horror. There's this like element of horror, and really psychologically, couldn't we say that that's the return of the repressed? That carries a lot of dark energy because it's been repressed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it comes through in dreams as horror, and with violence and robbers and killers and that type. That's how that material comes up, right? When we're trying to repress something, and it's at the beginning stages in dreams, it often comes as this really violent and scary emergence, right?
It can, because the ego isn't open to it. The famous line of Jung's that the unconscious shows itself in the face we turn toward it.
Yes.
So if we're open and receptive to that, then it doesn't feel so scary.
That's right.
Maybe, but then if we're close to it, it can feel very scary.
Yes.
Ego is threatened, or ego consciousness is threatened.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to the it's called, this book has been translated from the Italian, and it's called The Lost Daughter, and I think I told you I was going to look it up. We talked about this etymologically. Well, in Italian, it can mean obscure or mysterious, which really captures more of a dark energy, more than lost. And then etymologically, it can also mean, the word lost, the unknowability of others and ourselves. And then also there were other definitions, such other derivatives of this word meaning. It can mean spiritually ruined, which really is layered, right? Wow. And inaccessible to good influence. Inaccessible to good influence. I really think that captures how I'm thinking of this main character. She is lost because she is so unconscious and unable to connect up the trauma memories she's having with her own past to what's going on in the present.
But I think that's brilliant. This idea of lostness, because as you described it in its etymology, it's unrecoverability. There's a sense of hopelessness. I'm reminded of Dante's Inferno at the gates. Abandon hope, all ye who enter. Right. This hopelessness is such an interesting state. And it's interesting because I had read that she brought Dante to
the beach. That's right.
And was reading Dante. So this idea of lostness, right? That something is lost. What is lost? The opportunity she had was lost. I mean, she can't get back being the mother that she perhaps wanted to be, right? You and I talked about her carrying the potential of her carrying the idealized image of a mother that had to be punctured through this encounter or enactment with Nina, right? And this this polarity between the idealized and de-idealized is throughout this film. She falls in love with the image of Nina with the daughter, right?
Yes, she does.
Watching them playing, watching they're mirroring each other, they're touching each other. And the first scene that you pointed out and reminded me of was when she first sees it. She's so overwhelmed with emotion, she has to get up and go and leave the beach to go get a glass of water, and she's in tears.
She is. She's on the verge of just falling apart in the emotion of that, of just those images of watching Nina and her daughter play.
Yeah.
It is this swing between idealization and de-idealization, and you really get more of that in the book, I think, because they're out and out direct lines about how she feels about her daughters, very, very critical of her daughters and of Nina at different points. She'll at some point, I think later in the story, she walks by and she starts reeling off these judgments. Oh, she's not that beautiful. She's, her skin isn't good.
Yeah.
So it is just a swing between those opposites, idealization and de-idealization.
Yeah.
And to me, Dan, after we had our preliminary talk about the podcast, I realized, thinking about this material, I think, are you familiar with the book, Catherine Asper's Abandoned, it's called The Abandoned Child Within?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. It's like Leda she walks right out of that book in terms of her own self-estrangement. She doesn't have a self. I mean, her it's so overshadowed by negativity and self-judgment and shame about what she did, abandoning her daughters. And that goes right back to the abuse by her own mother that we really don't get a sense of in the film. It's much more prominent in the book.
It is.
There's only one line in the film where she's, it's kind of in the middle of the film, isn't it? Where she says she's going to leave, or she's struggling, and the husband is begging her to stay, I think.
Right.
And she says, and the husband says, "Oh, I'm going to take the kids back to your mother's."
Yeah.
And she says, she gets enraged.
Yeah.
"Don't do that. You can't do that," because she never got a high school education or something. But we get no sense that the mother was always threatening to leave her.
Yes.
As a child.
Yes.
And that's so crucial to the story, that she would reenact that. Like you pointed out in our earlier talk, she's finishing something that her mother had threatened to do.
Yes, as if she had to. So and it's like, what we know about working with Analysts, this intergenerational unlived life. The parents leave this unlived life, unfinished life for their children unconsciously. It's the children soak it up, they take it up, and it becomes their problem, right?
Right.
And Leda's problem was that the mother threatened to leave but never did.
Yeah.
And the fact that was unfinished, I think, for Leda.
Yeah.
The idea that she had to leave, but as that article pointed out that you sent me, it's a wonderful review. It's more than a review. It's
it's an interpretation.
I have to get it correct. Motherhood and Taboo: Recovering the Lost Daughter by Anastasia Berg. I just have to give it credit because what she points out is that what other reviews didn't state or didn't get to was the fact that she came back. So
yes, later returned. She left and returned.
She left and returned. And my take on it was she returned because she had to finish the whole thing. She didn't just leave to abandon her children. She had to come back, I think, unconsciously to pick up the pieces.
Right.
But she hadn't picked up the piece. She just went on mothering her children until they left to go live with the father, which which begins the film, right? She goes on vacation.
Right.
But as you and I talked about, she still carried, I imagine, the idealized image of her motherhood without having integrated the abandonment and the pain and the suffering.
I think the interpretation absolutely fits, because the idealization gets projected right onto Nina.
Yes.
There's still projective material there because it's unintegrated.
Yes.
And and also I want to make the point that the physical abandonment is important, of course, but we don't want to leave out, right, the emotional effects of the emotional abandonment of those chronic threats to leave.
Yes.
And even in the book mentions that Leda as a child would leave, would run, would leave.
Yeah.
She was always getting lost.
Yes,
She you know, it's almost like what happens in abusive situations where the child will trigger the abuse because the waiting and the anticipation of this horrible thing to happen is too much.
Well, that's a great idea. Oh, wow. That's a wonderful image of that.
Yeah, so she's going to leave before the mother does.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it precipitates a crisis, right? Which is my first impression of the film is, okay, why did she take the doll? And we have a lot to talk about with the doll. Right?
Yes, right.
Well, one of the things it demands is a crisis. It precipitates a crisis in one form or another.
Yes, yes.
And by her taking the doll, it binds her to this family. In largely unconscious ways, because she doesn't know why she takes it. But by binding herself to this family, she has now inserted herself in their destiny and made them a part of her destiny. You see that? It's so interesting an image to me.
Yes.
That this was a synchronicity that was waiting to happen, and it just, you know, it was a perfect configuration of all of elements in the outer world that reflected what was going on in Leda's inner life, right?
Yeah, you know, that feels so hermetic to me, doesn't it? The trickster, even in the book when you're reading, and then the next paragraph is, I took the doll, or there was the doll in my bag. It's shocking. And she kind of went unconscious. She took it, but she continually says, I don't know why I took it. And even says that to Nina at the end. And so you're right. There's this pervasion, what do I say there? Just a seeping in of all this hermetic energy of unconsciousness. But you know, we know as archetypes go, they can also they have a purpose, and it would be to wake her up and get her to see just what you're saying, that this crisis is a purposeful, necessary crisis, so that she can get more conscious about her life.
And Nina is a perfect image of, first of all, a perfect image of Leda at that age, at that stage. I forget the phrase that Nina said, does this ever get better, or something like that. She asks, is this and Leda says something, no, or it never go, it never
passes.
Nothing passes. Doesn't pass.
Yeah, Nina's asking her that. She's confused. She's the last scene, the confrontation scene where she comes to get the keys to sleep with Will, who's the assistant at the beach house, and she asks Leda, she says, I think I'm depressed. I don't know what this is. Does it ever end, or does it ever pass? And Nina says, and Leda says, no, it doesn't pass. In that scene, Dan, I realized watching it again, she is icy cold to Nina. All the idealization is gone. There's such devaluation. She is like this kind of, she's so cold and distant. Even though Nina says, can I come visit you? And Leda says, before she stabs her with the hat pin, Nina stabs her. She says, yeah, I'll give you my address. There, you know, all along there's been this connection around, will you mother me? Nina's saying, you know, I admire you. And they're looking at each other like mother-daughter.
Yes.
And there's also we said
an erotic
edge. Definitely. But,
which I got more in the film because of the imagery of her,
yes,
Nina kissing her on the mouth when
I agree.
when
Right.
she was leaving her, and
Right.
so I want to amplify this idea of this distance and this coldness and this rudeness. I think the article refers to it as rudeness. It's so interesting to me, and I agree. And I think it's more in the film, or at least more evident in the film, because you could see it. She's rebellious. She seems angry all the time. She's always on the defensive. She's not open. But what strikes me is that the ambivalence is that she pulls these people in, even as she's pushing them away. She's pulls people in and she pushes them away. Even with what's his name? Ed Harris. No,
Lyle.
The older guy. She's pushing him away, and then she has this this seduction scene where she I don't know what she was doing. You remember when he went to the bar, she was eating at the bar, and then she says, can I finish my meal? And he walks away, and then she goes up to him rather seductively. Right. It's like this push away and then pull you in, push away, pull you in throughout the film.
It's true. That's great. I would say that some of it is like this. Could we call that kind of an anima woman that is seductive? That what else to say about that? It's just a kind of a patriarchal artifact of how women. Again, to me, it's like she has no self. She's no grounded, cohesive self, and she's flips from, just like you said, a bitterness and there's some sadism here in terms of what we see earlier in her life with her daughter, her own daughter as a child. But she doesn't know herself enough to be nice to people or to be kind. She's so conflicted and mirror hungry that she vacillates between trying to please or assert her power. That to me was like a power move. And it's more evident in the book in that she wants to kind of show her power by flirting with him in front of these cronies that he has at the table, that scene in the bar with Lyle, and kind of assert her power after pushing him away and saying, I want to eat. Can I just finish my meal by myself?
Yeah. There's this image of patriarchy with her. She is attracted to the patriarchal culture of academia. She has to tell everybody she's from Cambridge and she's a professor of English literature. And it's like that defines her. She is the epitome of the woman who has conquered the patriarchy of academia, of Harvard. But it's like she uses that, and that's what Nina is attracted to, right? Her independence, her authority, her, and the first thing she tells her Nina's sister-in-law, no, I'm not going to move my umbrella. Thanks anyway. This presenting herself in such a way as Nina is attracted to that, because Nina doesn't feel that. Nina's caught up in this family system where she's subjugated, she's not heard, she's not seen,
this whole idea of achievement is really important, because and that Nina's latest caught by that, because even Asper in her book Abandoned Child Within says that people that have had this emotional abandonment in childhood, that are estranged from themselves, think that achievement will get the love that they're after, and it's never a substitute for love. And that applies to wanting admiration from other people for what we've achieved. It's often misconstrued as love, and it never substitutes. And interestingly, I think that in My Brilliant Friend, the character, I don't know if people our audience is watching that, we really recommend it though.
Yeah.
I read a review recently where Nino, the young cad from childhood that I don't want to spoil it for people, but anyway, but also Leda falls in this character, this wastebasket, let's say, of characters that that Ferrante, the author, wants to show that these people are educated and intelligent, but they are superficial and lack a self. And have no moral integrity. I mean, it's not to say that everybody has an affair is lacking moral integrity. However, there's something about these characters that are so separated from their own inner life and have no ability to have a self. And education is not a substitute for that, nor is intelligence a substitute for that, actually. So
I think that's a great point, Judith, because as you were saying that, I was thinking, oh, that's why she went back. So if she thought that leaving her children and, becoming a professor and, everything that she needed to be successful was going to satisfy her, if that was her fantasy, I'm imagining she realized that it didn't. And she went back. She says in the movie she went back because she's a selfish person, which doesn't tell me anything. But there's clearly more to it. She went back because she was unsatisfied. And she didn't find herself, just as you said, the sense of self that she may have imagined. She didn't find that, so she had to come back. And I find that with a lot of my analysts and the idea of often there's this fantasy that if I change the circumstances of my life, I'll change the inner landscape of my life. And it doesn't work because we bring the same inner landscape to the next set of circumstances or geography or whatever it is, right? It's almost as if she had to come back home, finish raising her children, in order to really find herself. We had to be in the context of the place she lost it. You know what I mean? She had to find herself in the context of the family because she didn't get that from her mother. She didn't get from her mother what she needed. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and now when the whole film shows is that that's all been recapitulated, right? Repeated, and she's still not getting it. And yet, I think this is where the healing aspects of the story come, where we watch the psyche trying to get her attention with the memories.
Yes.
And to link up the past experiences with the present.
Yes.
But that, I would argue that doesn't happen. And we hopefully we'll get to the end scene where she has this line that is so ambiguous, but full of
different between the film
different between the book and the film. Yeah.
I want to go back to the pivotal scene with Nina and that confrontation where she brings the doll out and Nina gets enraged and stabs her with the pin. I got the impression from that scene when we asked the question, what did Leda want from Nina? What was this all about? And I got the impression that she wanted her forgiveness, but the forgiveness was from her daughters that she was looking for it, but it was transposed onto Nina,
right.
as if she had to steal this doll to precipitate this crisis in order to basically try to get from, and maybe her fantasy was that Nina would forgive her for having done what she done.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. Instead, this puncture of this illusory world that she constructed was punctured literally by this pin.
Literally, literally. Yeah, I agree. I think she was after, from Nina, justification, redemption, forgiveness, all of that. Just that's why in the book there's a line, you know, we haven't mentioned the sister-in-law yet, but she wanted, the sister-in-law keeps interjecting herself all through the film, and she carries, to me, I think she carries the shadow for Leda, in that it's the non-ambivalence about motherhood. No ambivalence about motherhood. But there's a line in the book where she says, I just want to get Nina alone to talk to her about what happened, because she, and so she is absolutely looking for redemption, and that colors, she can't imagine Nina might be pissed at her for causing such havoc in everybody's lives in this family.
Which speaks to the narcissism, right?
Yes,
the narcissism that has been unmetabolized, had to go through this process of wounding.
Right.
But I think you're onto something with the sister-in-law. The sister-in-law has no ambivalence about motherhood. She's been trying to get pregnant for 10 years. She was jealous of Nina that gets pregnant in a heartbeat.
Right away,
you know. But, and so in that sense, she carries the collective attitude around motherhood, right?
Yes.
Mothers want to be mothers, and you know, and that's all they want. When they want to be a mother, that's all they want to be, and there's no ambivalence, there's no shadow there.
Right. That's good. Yeah.
But the film is all about the shadow of that.
Yeah. I think your emphasis on this idealization is really crucial, and that speaks to the redemption that she's looking for too. I think women that become mothers carry that without even realizing that, because the images in the culture are so pervasive around the glow of being pregnant. I mean, Ferrante in the book has these images of pregnancy that are so disturbing. At some point, do you remember this? She says something like, it felt like an insect's poison was injected into my vein. They're really repulsive images that she is, and she's, I think, carrying that shadow for Ferrante. That would be my guess, that she's won so much to bring out this shadow.
I'm glad you said that. You know, it just came to me. I read this, read or heard a podcast. This whole thing about pregnancy, and it's like, you know, with all my biology background, it's like, oh, holy shit! I'm like, wow, because the mothers, the experience, the biological experience of growing a child is. The whole mother's immune system and defensive system works against having a healthy baby, because it's a foreign body in the mother. So what nature had to do in the course of evolution was to bypass the mother and steal nutrition, steal the nourishment when the mother, you know, when the mother eats and it goes in. The fetus and the womb and the uterus, the way it was designed, and the placenta, which is a huge part of the whole system, is designed to take food away from the mother. It doesn't care about the mother. It's like, we're going to take as much food as possible, because our goal is to feed the baby. The mother's goal is to stay alive in this process. You have this sense of, oh my God, this battle that is going on inside of this mother, and we just, you know, culturally, as you said, the glow, the image of the mother with the baby and the Pampers and the all of that. Well, the shadow of that is this battle that has to go on, and the mother's fighting in a way for her biological life right?
Oh,
Not just biological, but psychological,
yeah,
as
yeah.
evidenced in the story itself,
Yes,
because
yes.
Leda is all about, how do I find myself in the context of
right,
this
right.
this symbiotic relationship with these children?
Yeah. Whoa, whoa. That's intense,
It
Dan.
just came to me.
Yeah. Oh. Boy, it's a piece we don't acknowledge in the culture.
Mm-mm.
Um,
And the article was good about, I think one of the article's premises is that, why, I like what she said, why are we surprised by this issue of taboo? Why is this issue of maternal ambivalence such a taboo? It's been throughout literature.
right. And film, she points out, and film too.
Yeah. And it's like going way back, right?
Yeah.
Medea. Lady Macbeth, and
she mentions the hours where
the
Laura Brown leaves the son. Yeah. I think it's because we continually have to put it out there, because we go on, the culture goes unconscious.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we saw happen with trauma. Yeah. Where it went from Freud's work with Charcot and trauma, and then it went on. Van der Kolk talks about this in his books, that it went unconscious until it comes back in the 80s.
Yes. And the thread going all the way back to Charcot and Genet had to be picked up again, because it was abandoned. It
went
for
into
decades.
Decades. And each time it comes around, it's like, oh, wow, this is so new. Because that speaks to the unconsciousness of it.
Yeah. Let's talk about the image of the doll, because it's so interesting to me. Again, going back to this idealization, de-idealization, the doll, is the image of childhood. It's the image of motherhood, and the child, the daughter's mothering of the doll, and mirroring the mother's mothering of her, and this kind of this idyllic image, right?
The attachment between the two. It's an image of the attachment between mother and child, right?
Yeah.
So it carries so, and the fact that in the book and the film, of course, too, the Ferrante talks about allowing the child to treat the mother like a doll, dressing, playing with the mother as if she's a doll, and treating the doll as a mother. So it's
That's a beautiful image, right? Because what is the daughter? The daughter's picking up something from the mother that is very, very important and is absolutely needed for the daughter's identity. And she's picking up, hopefully, the interiorness of the mother, right? And in my work, and I'm sure you're in your work with Analysts, when that doesn't happen, when there's not enough interiorness of the mother to provide that psychological nourishment, there's a great deprivation there, and it really contributes to the daughter's inability to develop a sense of self. So my take on Leda's mother was not only that she's threatened to leave, but there wasn't enough of her interior life to give it to Leda, and hence Leda struggled with that with her own daughters. Because what did she fight about with her daughters? Well, her daughter simply had the usual jealousy, envy, greed, and anger, and they're developing autonomy, right? They're trying to express their autonomy, and Leda's response to that in those flashback scenes is like she's enraged. She gets enraged. This is like an affront to her. It's like she's carrying the idealized image of what children are supposed to be, or daughters are supposed to be.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? And she's constantly betrayed at every turn, right?
Right. I would add, yes, I agree. I would add, though, it's not just the deprivation, It's the actual aggressiveness that goes on that's
Mm.
unacknowledged, because there's this great scene. I noticed this one of the repeated viewings of the film where Nina and her husband are arguing. Next shot, we see Elena, Nina's daughter, biting the doll.
Oh, I forgot that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's not just it's the deprivation in the. Could we say it's the deprivation leading to a stronger sense of self that in the actual aggressiveness itself.
Yes.
I don't know if that makes psychological sense, but I would say, yeah, there's something about the quality of the relationship in all of its negativity that is being carried on and intergenerationally.
Yes.
Right. So and yeah.
No, finish your thought.
Well, I just want to make another point. The scene where in the film where Bianca hits her, Leda's oldest daughter, who's around 5 in the movie, it hits her, and then Leda starts hitting her at the same time saying, "You don't hit mommy," which is not a good thing as a parent, of course. But then and then I think this is a scene where she slams the door and all the glass shatters.
Yes.
Well, it occurred to me that she left. Leda left, maybe, we don't know how long after that, but I started wondering whether one of the reasons she left was that she was afraid of her own rage. It was so intense and it was so out of control. And even in the book, the language of that scene is I circled this on the page. I hit her again. I hit her again. I hit her again. And she said it was restrained, but she kept on hitting her.
Yes. That's
so
a
that
really good point.
aggressiveness that goes along with that, the deprivation of the lack of caring of a loving, I think that was maybe there's scenes of her giggling with their daughters and having a good time. But we know that those negative, abusive events can really color a childhood if they're not if they're out of balance with the positive.
Well, and it leaves the child to have to then resolve that in adulthood, and they end up passing it on to their children. So this idea of what happens to this aggression if it's not properly contained. And another scene that I think is important to this and is the idea of the lack of reparation. So an example of that is the doll that Leda gives to Bianca. So she was trying to.
That's right.
Trying to do something again with an idealization. Right. This is my doll. This is my doll. So take care of, expecting her to take care of it, and not allowing for the opportunity for Bianca's aggression to come out. Right. There's no space for that. So she feels betrayed. And what's the image of her throwing the doll out of anger out the window?
Out the window. Yes.
Is an image of the lost daughter.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So she throws it up instead of sitting down and repairing the situation. Say, so tell me how you were feeling about this. You must have been angry or whatever. That would have been a whole different way to bring in, use the modern term, thirdness, right? It would have been a way of bringing in mutuality of experience and containing the aggression, so that it wasn't simply deposited in her daughter, right? And I think that's a good image. And then so now, instead of dealing with her own aggression in the relationship in her family, she leaves.
Yes.
Right. Right. Because that's apparently it's the way she thought that she had to deal with it.
And yes, that's great, because the sadism, that we saw with her daughter, where she wouldn't even soothe and kiss the daughter's finger when she cuts the finger by trying to peel the orange like her mother did, is still there in stealing the doll. the sadistic, that's why Nina can't believe that she actually watched the suffering without doing anything that she caused by taking the doll. So that work through aggressiveness is still part of her life. Calling, with the hat pin, still that's
like it was a blind spot.
Real blind
she
spot.
could not empathize with the suffering that was caused by taking the doll.
She couldn't. No,
she could not take it in, perhaps until the moment Nina stabbed her.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm not sure even then. But I certainly got her attention for a half a minute.
Yeah.
But she wakes up on the beach. The last scene, she's got the blood on her shirt where the hat pin went in. And she says very, very, I think, dissociatively, I would say, on that, to that final phone call on the beach to her daughters, dead? No, actually, I'm alive. Without any attempt to, within herself, or certainly within her daughters. She doesn't have that kind of relationship with her daughters. I mean, she's tried a bit to talk with them, and that it's in the book. She tried to talk with them, but they don't want to hear it.
Well, and yet, when we
leaving.
Right.
Yeah.
When we talked about this last time, my idea around that was that her relationship with her daughters, I tend to take from both the book and the film, still had this sense of idealization of an expectation that her daughters feed her in some way, right? That somehow the daughters that need to give her something rather than just being the matriarch that she is and letting the daughters relate to her in the manner in which they needed to. She's still expecting something from them. And at the end by the end of the film, having gone through what she went through, I think that's gone because she's listening almost in a joyful way, like, please, tell me about your life, rather than in this regretful or needy way. I want you to listen to me. It's this competitiveness. It's like she opened herself. She got tears running down her cheeks. Opened herself to her daughters, simply telling her about their lives and what's going on. And
now that you say that again, I can see some of that. I think that has some legs in terms of an interpretation.
And it's a lot of me being put in there, right?
So
I like the last line. You already talked about the
last line of the book.
The last line of the book is after the same circumstances. She's on the beach. She goes. The daughters call her. And they say, Mama, what are you doing? Why haven't you called? Won't you at least let us know if you're alive or dead? Deeply moved, I murmured, I'm dead, but I'm fine. Now, Elena Ferrante makes a point of saying she understood Gyllenhaal's, change was a faithful betrayal, right?
Yes.
But she particularly made a point of saying that change bothered her, and which strikes me as, I agree. I like this last line. It's so poignant and says so much. Like she had to die, and her idealization had to die, and she had to feel it be punctured in order for her to change. That's my take.
Oh, yes, I agree, except that I would say that she's not changed.
Okay.
I do not see, I would have to be convinced about any transformation here, which makes me really sad to say. I want the transformation.
You want her to change.
I do. But I just
clearly we don't have enough from the film to know what happens after this.
No, it kind of leaves us hanging. In that sense, I saw it as very unsettling and
unfinished.
Unfinished.
Unfinished for
unfinished.
you.
Yeah, definitely.
That's interesting. I had a sense of it being finished, and again, it may be what I'm putting into it. That this whole enactment had to take place, and so that she can develop a different attitude towards her. Of course, I've worked with a lot of older people where their children are all grown and they still have these leftover expectations. You know what I mean? And I think it's unfinished business, unfinished expectations or projections. And, you know what I'm saying?
Do you think that's that's related? Oh, we talked about this earlier in our pre-conference about it. I think you said it today. It's just a refusal to grieve, or a lack of having to connect with regrets.
And really grieve the loss of the missed opportunities. Right. I wasn't the perfect parent. What does that? What does that feel like? Can I sit with that and now that I'm, done parenting, can I just grieve that? All that missed opportunities, right?
Right. That's the theme of Mary Stein's book, In Midlife. We have to bury the dead, bury the past, and to move on in our lives. And she's in that stage for sure. With empty nester, and this would be on her way to. I kept wanting her to go to a good analyst, right?
Right. Yeah.
Find an analyst.
That's right. Particularly a Jungian.
Yes. I don't know if I'd want to treat her though. Would you?
Oh, I would love to treat her.
Would you?
There is a part of me that is just has this warmness towards her, even with all her defensiveness and her.
I have to say, I did feel also very sympathetic toward her. That wavered a bit on subsequent viewings, but I had a lot of empathy toward her. So I have to revise I would welcome treating her too.
I have to say that the book, possibly because it's first person narrative, there's more of Leda in that you can take in and relate to, and you just it's just not the same on film.
It's true. The film does not capture that inner dialogue that was so rich with feeling, nuances of feeling. It wasn't that she didn't know what she was feeling. She would go from one feeling to the next feeling. Like after she takes the doll, she sees it as comical. And then she sees it as compassionate. And then she sees it as, what am I talking about? This is terrible. What do I do now? But the lack of insight was breathtaking. And that's the woundedness. That's the narcissistic woundedness. The trauma is so great that she can't get there.
I love the image I told you of the cicada, which in the book she makes the reference to the cicada as being a female, and it's because it's membrane over the belly, which in a male would provide for it to make noise. The female doesn't make noise. It's the male that makes the noise and attracts the female. And then she doesn't elaborate on it, but she gives you that image, which is kind of like a foreshadowing of this is an image of the feminine in relationship to the patriarchy, and ends up with a burst stomach, right? Foreshadowing the hat pin in her own stomach.
And childbirth for that matter, I guess.
Yes. So we recommend you see this film.
Yes. Yes. And
Still on Netflix, by the way.
and what's that?
Still on Netflix. by the way.
Yeah, still on Netflix, and to read the book as well. I
Yes.
would say too, the book is also excellent. We didn't even talk about Leda and the swan, her namesake.
Oh yeah.
This being-
Say that.
Well, there's a theme in mythology that this queen, apparently Queen of Sparta, Leda, is raped by Zeus, who comes to her in the as a swan, and so it's about a rape, and maybe in the context of this film to talk about women as victims of the patriarchy and that dominance. But in mythology, one of the children that comes out of that rape is Helen of Troy.
Oh wow.
Which leads to the Trojan War.
Yeah. Wow.
Layers of
great
images.
Yeah. And Yeats, was it Yeats's
poem?
Later. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dan. Are we done?
Thank you. I think that's good.
I
think that's good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll see you soon.
Till next time.
Next time.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like more information about training programs, archives, this podcast, or to find a Jungian analyst near you, visit our website, jungchicago.org. Thank you to our 2021 donors who gave at the contributing member level or above: the Arlene M. Feiner Trust, Barbara Anand, Arlo and Rena Compan, Judith Cooper, Kevin Davis, George J. Didier, Mary Doherty, Carl and Patricia Greer, Ryan Mayer, Patricia Martin, Boris Matthews, Sue Rosenthal, Diane Sherwood, Debbie Stutzman, Lawrence Chad Tingley, Alexander Wayne and Lynn Kopp, Gerald Weiner, and Ellen Young. You can also become a supporter of this podcast by visiting our website, jungchicago.org. Thanks.